All right, so the shift that you all felt a couple weeks ago and throughout the last couple weeks, I genuinely think that World War III has already begun. We're just kind of realizing it now because we have multiple countries around the globe that are prepping for World War III, acting as if it's going to happen. And of course, it's better to be prepared and to have the resources and everything lined up in case, but things are not looking good, okay? Things are not looking good. And so we're going to go and watch a couple videos here. The first one about how Germany is prepping for World War III that could potentially deploy 800,000 NATO troops. Okay, and just so you guys know, Russia still has more troops and more resources and military usages, etc. And with what Putin did yesterday by launching that hypersonic missile into Ukraine, where they couldn't do anything about stopping it, Putin was basically saying, "Look, I would have already started World War III if I wanted to," and he hasn't just yet. And it goes to show that Ukraine is really the only territory that is on Russia's target. And it's not even about killing people. It's just about bringing it back to Russian territory because it was originally Russian territory. If you look at the Tucker Carlson Putin interview from earlier this year, I believe it was in January or February, Putin does a really great analysis on what actually happened. And it was very interesting to listen to Putin talk about this kind of thing because it gave a lot of context to why the war is even going on. And America at this point in time is just amping up the tensions and are instinctively and purposefully rather and intensely heating up things because God knows why. I think that when the shift happened collectively a couple weeks ago, we were already in the World War III. Like World War III was going to happen one way or another with these people because they were not going to go out quietly. And, now the best thing that they can offer is a chance of world chaos and war. And I don't think we need to be scared about it or anything. I'm just saying that this is what they're up to, and we need to be paying attention and be vigilant about this. I also want to discuss what the United Nations is as well as NATO, because this is the North Atlantic Treaty signed by, 34 different countries or something like that throughout the last 50 or 70 years. And basically, if anybody attacks a country of NATO, they're all going to war. But Russia still has, again, more troops and resources and militarized weapons, etc. And we're going to see why with this simulation here in a second about the hypersonic missile. But first, let's take a look at why Germany's prepping and all these other European countries are prepping. The Great Britain, the UK, I mean, they're basically a joke right now, and they're operating on a 1984 timeline. I mean, these are the same people that are arresting people for posting certain memes. So how this country is prepared for war, I have no clue, but let's listen to this first.
Got it, Lauren. Thank you. Germany reportedly has a plan to deploy 800,000 NATO troops into Ukraine if Russia invades a NATO country. Christian Wyden, former State Department official, joins me now. Have I got that right? If Russia invades a NATO country, Germany deploys 800,000 troops, including Americans, into Ukraine? That sounds like they're planning for World War III.
It does. It's pretty weird. It's a weird signal to send at this point. Yes, they would react, of course, but Russia isn't poised to invade any NATO country. As bad as Russia has been in this war, we have to remember they've only been able to occupy the lands that are mostly ethnically Russian, that are adjacent to Russia. They haven't been able even to get to the Dnieper River or take Kiev. The idea they're going to be in Warsaw tomorrow and Berlin.
And let's remember why that is. I think if Putin and he wanted to, it would have happened. But Trump is supposedly having conversations with Putin, and supposedly there are negotiations being placed, allegedly, but who knows? Who knows? But I think like, really though, I think the only thing that we can do is speculate and try to make an educated decision and strategy about where things are going. I honestly have no clue where things are going at this point, but I do know one thing for sure is that we all have felt this shift, and we all know that something has either happened or is going to happen. That's even more so than what already is happening.
Berlin the day after that and take the Baltics is just outlandish. There's no real threat of that.
But NATO countries like Germany should have a plan just in case, because you never quite know what's going on here, do you?
That's right. And the ballistic missile that was fired was probably, it was a message from Moscow that they are really, really upset that U.S. and British long-range weapons are now being used inside of Russia.
Yeah, and Putin has every right to be upset about that. Why do we need to be involved with this stuff? Like, the United States really needs to get its nose out of trouble it doesn't belong in. Absolutely. But we have a corrupt government, so things are going to happen. But let's take a look at this simulation video here about the hypersonic missile. Okay, so you guys see it goes into outer space above the atmosphere, allegedly, and makes like a huge, gigantic arc that is unstoppable. And that's why Putin decided to use it, was to show them that they cannot stop the weapons that he has, potentially speaking. I mean, that kind of weapon is pretty cool, though. Not that it's like good to see the destruction, but the engineering behind it is really, really high tech and top notch.
The first point I would...
Okay, so this is Lieutenant General Rob Magawan. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. From the British Army, and he's declaring that UK is ready for war. I mean, we'll listen to what he has to say.
Is that if the British Army was asked to fight tonight,
yes,
it would fight tonight.
I just don't see how that guy is ready for war. I mean, I'm just looking at him, and this guy's face does not seem like a fierce, ferocious, ready-for-action leader. I don't know the UK inside and out necessarily, but looking at this guy, I wouldn't think somebody to fear as a major country, specifically as Putin. I wouldn't think of this guy as someone to fear.
And I don't think anybody in this room should be under any illusion that if the Russians invaded Eastern Europe tonight, then we would meet them in that fight. That would be the first point I'd make. Secondly, and as we go through the classified briefing, can we sit here and say that 3 UK division carries no operational risk whatsoever? Of course not. There are a range of operational risks and operational strengths associated with that division, and that is exactly what the Strategic Defence Review is addressing. We've spoken at this committee before about a munitions strategy and a munitions plan. We know we need more lethality. We haven't been secret about that. The Secretary of State has talked about stepping up some of those joint enablers that we need to do. So, of course, there are areas that we're addressing through the SDR. But my third point would be critical to responding is ensuring that we can respond and adapt. And the ability to respond and adapt absolutely lies at the heart of our industrial strategy. And we're seeing this playing out in Ukraine. It's the ability for Ukraine itself and those allies of Ukraine that can respond and provide whatever they need, or in our case, whatever the alliance needs in the case of a major conflagration with Russia, is able to have the industrial strength to respond. And that is why so much of what we're doing is through the SDR, and what we've done up to the SDR is about absolutely embedding a sovereign industrial base and an allied industrial base as well, because the situation changes on the ground, as you well know.
19 ноября.
Okay, so now this is going to be Putin talking about why he launched those missiles on November 20th and 21st, I believe it was, whereas November 19th is when there were 6 U.S.-made tactile missiles that were launched on civilian bases. Okay, these were civilian-based buildings and infrastructure in Russia. So the fact that Putin attacked a military base back, it was really going to show, metaphorically speaking, where Ukraine has their heart and Russia has their heart. Just my opinion on the outside there, but we'll listen to see what Putin has to say, and I'll pause because I don't think there's any translation, so I'll have to read the translation itself here.
6 оперативно-тактическими ракетами «Атакам» с производства США и 21 ноября в ходе комбинированной ракетной атаки системами «Шторм».
So on November 21st, during a combined missile attack with UK-made Storm Shadow and US-made HIMARS systems, military faculties were struck in the Bryansk and Kursk regions of the Russian Federation.
Storm Shadow производства Великобритании и HIMARS производства США были нанесены удары.
Since then, as we have repeatedly emphasized earlier, the regional conflict Ukraine provoked by the West has acquired elements of a global nature, which it absolutely has.
По военным объектам на территории Российской Федерации, в Брянской и Курской областях. С этого момента, как мы неоднократно подчеркивали, ранее спровоцированный Западом региональный конфликт на Украине приобрел элементы глобального характера.
Our air defense systems repelled these attacks. As a result, the goals that the enemy obviously set for itself were not achieved.
Наши системы противовоздушной обороны отражали эти атаки. В результате цели, которые очевидно были поставлены перед собой противником, не достигнуты. Еще раз хочу особо подчеркнуть.
Once again, I would like to emphasize that the use of such weapons by the enemy is not capable
Что применение противником подобного
of influencing the course of military actions in the zone of the special military operation.
оружия не в состоянии повлиять на ход боевых действий в зоне специальной военной операции.
Our troops are successfully advancing along the entire line of combat contact. All the tasks that we have set for ourselves will be accomplished.
Наши войска
You listen to what Putin has to say, and you listen to the UK guy. Come on, guys! Like that, who's really got the will to do this? If you've ever been in a fight before, anybody that's ever been in a fight, sometimes it comes down to just guts and brute force. It's not about thinking strategy. Sometimes when you're in a fight, sometimes it's just about who wants it more.
успешно наступают по всей линии боевого соприкосновения. все задачи, которые мы перед собой ставим, будут решены.
In response of the use of American and British long-range weapons on November 21st of this year,
В ответ на применение американского и британского дальнобойного оружия 21 ноября текущего года российские
the Russian armed forces launched a combined attack on one of the facilities of the Ukraine Defense Industry Complex.
вооруженные силы нанесли комбинированный удар по одному из объектов оборонно-промышленного комплекса
In
Украины.
combat conditions, one of the newest Russian medium-range missile systems was also tested.
В боевых условиях было проведено в том числе и испытание одной из новейших российских ракетных систем
In this case, with a ballistic missile in non-nuclear hypersonic equipment.
средней дальности. В данном случае с баллистической ракетой в безъядерном гиперзвуковом оснащении. Наши ракетчики назвали
Our missile men called it Orishnik. The tests were successful. The goal of the launch was achieved.
ее «Орешник». Испытания прошли успешно. Цель пуска достигнута. Повторю. Испытания
Let me repeat that we are conducting combat tests of the Orishnik missile system in response to the aggressive actions of NATO countries against Russia. So he goes on for another minute here. But let's take a look at the NATO, tomato countries here. So you guys see here is the list of all of the NATO countries. And again, NATO and the United Nations are separate, but the United Nations are, I can think about it as the NWO. Those who know what I'm talking about. But the United Nations was founded in 1945, and there's a lot of different kinds of things that could be constructed since the creation of the United Nations. But the members of the United Nations are pretty much most of the world, but the reasons why I want to go through these things and talk about the United Nations is because we got to keep our eye on the global scale at this point. The consciousness that we are stepping into as a collective is going to be very profound and very particular in how things are going to be revealed. What I want to make sure of is that if all of these countries are working together, and if, let's say, Trump and Joe Biden, which were super happy last week together, I mean, who knows? Were they on the golf course together recently? I don't know, but celebrating, who knows at this point, guys? Who really knows what's happening and what's going down? Because we might not even be getting all of the information to make proper predictions in what's happening in our society. That's what I'm most concerned about as a citizen trying to just figure this stuff out, is that I don't even know if we have all of the pieces to make a proper decision and strategy, because we don't know if we even have all of the possibilities available. And these people that work in the shadows understand that there's a lot to be said for working in silence. And so these people that are working in silence and in the shadows probably have a firm understanding that the less that they tell about their plan and the more that things just kind of happen spontaneously, well, the less the public will be able to restrict or rebuke these new things that are happening. I mean, we're all just kind of getting dragged into World War III as we know it. We don't want it. The people don't want war. And yet, you know what I think is all of the people that voted for Biden, all of the people that voted for Harris over the past four plus years now. Why don't you guys go on the front lines? We didn't want this war. The people that didn't vote and the people that voted for Trump, generally speaking, don't want war. I don't want war. Let me be very clear and put out some disclaimers before we conclude the video for today. I don't want any kind of war. I want peace. I want to see luxuriousness proliferate itself in our society, but not at the expense of hardworking people that get taken advantage of by the system. What we need is a good, free system that has no special treating people special because of their skin color or their gender or their attraction to certain people, or like, are they heterosexual or bisexual or whatever. Like, we don't need any more special treatment. What we need are people that are competent and people that are level-headed and just cool heads in general. I think is going to be the best way to go about this. And again, I'm not worried. I'm not too worried about this. Although I have been questioning whether even it's possible for nuclear bombs to exist at this time, because I've seen some of these videos out here of nuclear tests from like the 40s and 50s. And the video, I'm looking at it and I'm like, you know what? How come the video, which seems so close, even though it's only like 6 miles away, supposedly, and then some of them is like a house right next to it, how come the camera doesn't get vaporized? The camera doesn't even move in some instances. And then you have, obviously the people that, and I'm just asking a question. I'm not saying that nuclear bombs don't exist. I'm just asking, like, why is that? Why does it not look like the video is capturing reality in this instance? Why does it look like certain things are not adding up? Because they're not adding up. And I'm sure there will be people in the comments that say something like, oh, well, there's like a protective lens on the camera or something, or like, they don't have the technology that we really thought they did. Or I'm sure there's going to be certain kinds of rebukes and rebuttals of this, but I want you guys to really think about this. Like, why, if nuclear war has been, I think it could be the case that nuclear war could be like this satanic eye that watches down on the population and basically controls the population through fear of a nuclear war. It's possible. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm just saying that it's possible. But I don't know. I don't know. It's just kind of strange to me that we have all these videos that capture nuclear war, or nuclear bombs and the possibility of nuclear war, but nothing happens to the cameras, and there's no shaking of the cameras. There's no I don't know. Maybe somebody can put some resources in the comments there, but anyways, guys, I think I wanted to just come out tonight and really get this information out about what's going on and why things are happening the way that they are and why you're feeling these shifts, because the collective is definitely upgrading itself and we're on a new timeline. But again, I think that World War III was going to happen one way or another. This is one of the reasons why I chose not to vote this year, was because I didn't see how either choice, even if there was one that was a lesser evil, I didn't see how either choice would cause anything other than chaos. And I do not want to be getting the karma of my vote to a particular person or party or whatever because of I'm putting my will with the will of those people in some instances. I mean, that's what voting is, really. You're putting your will and aligning your will with the person who has the power in this position. I mean, I don't know. I just think that we all need to get close to Christ. Like, we really need to just get close to Christ at this point. But anyways, guys, I hope this video was useful and insightful. And we just need to accept that this is where we're at in World War III. This is it. I mean, we've all kind of known it for a while. I have a feeling that if things continue to escalate, which they are, like literally day by day, and we have multiple European countries prepared for World War III, it's just not looking okay. It's not looking good, and the United States has played a major part in amping up the tension, which I do not agree with. I want peace. I want everybody to get close to Christ. I want everybody to follow the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High, because at that point, we wouldn't need a government. We wouldn't need all these wars. We wouldn't need anything like this. So be mindful out there, ladies and gentlemen. And with all that being said, peace be with you all. Till next time.